Hey, good morning. How's it going? On this fantastic episode of MSP Community Live, we're bringing like half the community to you. So,
full house.
Happy Friday.
This is what happens when you make the Brady Bunch jokes last show. Don't tempt me. I will get 3 more people next week. We'll make this happen.
I mean, I'm down. I think I'm the one who pretty much said, Henry, don't leave. We're going to just do as many as we can. Maybe we can have people like ping us and say they want to join the show live right now.
That's right.
Good
like
be.
that Matt's drinking
Get
coffee
some,
like a responsible adult, and I'm drinking Mountain Dew like I'm 7.
Hey, I mean, we all need to go to a gas station and buy like we're a teenager on a road trip, right?
I think I have some Mountain Dew around here. Switch it up.
Yeah.
So, Josh, I'm sorry about your Padres.
You know, when you give up 6 runs in 2 innings, it's pretty hard to win.
It's a rough start.
It's all right. Cubs didn't do much better yesterday, so.
I think today's the opening day for Blue Jays, or is it tomorrow? I don't remember now. I gotta look.
Day.
If it wasn't yesterday, it's definitely today.
Yeah.
Mets actually did well. They had a quite a good game for day one, although they have a league-wide like top 2 or top 3 opening day record, and things tend to go downhill from there.
I was going to say, isn't their MO to kind of build up your anticipation of what the season could be and then just bring it crashing down?
Yeah, well, so last year it was a slow burn, like a collapse over 2.5 months. If we're going to lose, like, can we just be bad all year? That would be way easier to deal with as a fan.
I think it's interesting to say a record for one game. I mean, anybody can do something once. I'm just saying.
It's true.
For the most,
That's how you start a streak, one game at a time.
So, like Disney Princess Michael.
Look, all I know is my Orioles are undefeated, and that's all that I care about.
Well, enjoy Pete.
Today is opening day for the Rockies, which is why I'm an Avalanche fan.
They at like a bar that occasionally baseball breaks out at. Like, what's more fun than that?
Hockey. No, hockey people are way more intense. watching hockey than baseball. 100%.
Yep.
I
Yeah,
was going to say Avalanche are doing pretty good, aren't they?
they're top of the Western right now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Heck yeah, they are. We just
damn right.
the Stars just need to knock it off. Like I know I've stated this before, but like if you are in the South, like let's just say below Nebraska, and you have a hockey team, it's just not even fair. So like you're Florida, you're Texas, like be like Arizona, okay? Like you can have a hockey game, it can be a hockey team, it can be fun, but you have to suck, okay? Like if you don't have ice naturally occurring where you're geographically located, then you're not allowed to be good. And Florida and Dallas need to get the memo.
That's
I
fair.
mean,
Or you have to be extremely cool to make up for it. See, like the Vegas Golden Knights. I mean, they put on a show. The San Jose Sharks are pretty cool. So, like, I don't have any ill will towards them. It's really just Dallas and Florida. Take their hockey teams away.
Well, and the Blackhawks get in, even if it was warm there, they get in just because of how cool their sweaters are. Like they got the dopest jersey in the game, man. It's so sick.
Yeah. They're one of the original 6 too, so you get some history there. But
yeah.
All right. Let's I'm gonna get us back on track here. Because we started on hockey here.
Been 4 minutes back on track.
Let's go ahead and get into our stories here. So we'll do it a little bit differently here since there is quite a bit of us. We'll kind of pick and choose, and I'll try to direct traffic here the best I can. But our first story here is a story that I bet none of us have ever heard before. We've never dealt with this. So this is just new territory. A client wants enterprise level uptime, but they won't pay for basic infrastructure. This person apparently is running into this way more and more, but he's wondering if anyone else has ever seen this. You got clients expecting near 100% uptime, instant support, 0 issues, but their infrastructure is bare minimum. It's outdated hardware, no redundancy, backups that may or may not work. They push back on every upgrade quote, and when something inevitably breaks, it's suddenly, why wasn't this prevented? You try to explain risk, lifecycle, proper setup, always comes back to budget. They just want enterprise reliability on a startup budget. At some point, it feels like we're set up to fail. Things barely running and take the blame later. We push harder and risk losing the client. So how do you handle it? Amanda, let's go to you since you're in the top right hand of my screen.
I mean, I think that Matt and I are going to have similar answers on this. And I feel like there's something missing in the conversation about what the value is that you actually deliver. Because they want something, but they're not, like, it's not the end result. Like, do you know what I'm saying? There's a gap missing here, and we're blaming the client. But is it the client's fault when they don't understand what we can or can't do? To me, it's not. To me, this feels like there's either a misfit or there is a misunderstanding about what it takes to get there. It's not magic what we do. It requires infrastructure. It requires back-end items. Now, I also think this person's exaggerating. There is no person that's going to have a breakdown of their car and not question why it happened. There's no person that's going to have a problem in an infrastructure and not, and just immediately go, well, that's to be expected. No big deal. Unless your thing is like 100,000 years old and has 500 million kilometers on it or whatever, right? Like, people are always going to ask questions. You just have to be competent enough to be able to manage the questions and try to get ahead of them. That's my personal opinion.
Matt, you were called out and saying you have the same opinion. Do you agree or disagree?
Yeah, I think we do. There's a phrase that I like to use in cases like this, and it's simply that the requirements drive the solution, and that's it, right? If your requirement is uptime, actually, I've solved this successfully once by quoting what it would take to get that kind of uptime and let the client see what the price is on that. And a conversation about what you're asking for can be done, but it adds so many zeros to the cost of doing so that you're better off spending a little less and getting 3 nines of uptime, not even getting into the technical aspects of what you can and can't control in a SaaS provider anyway. Right? If you take this from like an on-prem infrastructure perspective, just have a frank conversation about here's what that kind of environment costs. Let's talk about what you'd be giving up to get it down to the type of budget you can afford. Like, just treat your clients like adults and have a conversation about where they want to be on that spectrum.
So it goes back to our previous week about communication and speaking like adults. Henry, how do you handle this? Well, Erik and Mike, you'll get your turn on the next one. But let's let Henry answer this one.
So I largely agree with Matt and Amanda on this. You need to have proper communication, set those expectations, but there are also instances where you're just always going to end up caring more than someone else about something. And if they don't value what you're doing, if you're unable to express that to them, they may not be a good fit for you.
That's same. I mean, right there, it's kind of the whole business risk of it. If there's a miscommunication or misaligned goals, then you either realign or part the separate ways and find someone else to help them out. So it is. I mean, it is very.
Sorry, I guess I wonder too if the clients ever calculated their own burn rate. Like this is a conversation where you can actually demonstrate your business acumen and be able to explain to them, like, this is what it would cost you to be down. Let's go through and do this exercise so that you can understand what it would cost them for one downtime, the eventuality of that downtime. And to Matt's point about like looking at what it takes in order to make sure that you're comfortable. What's your comfortable rate of downtime? And then, what does it cost you, right? And make that also very evident.
Anything's possible with enough budget.
That's right.
Just help them understand that they don't have unlimited budget.
Nines cost money.
Well, it's like, I think when when Verizon or something had like a large outage a year or two ago, there was a couple stories that hit Reddit of like somebody saying we need, you need to build redundancy into this and build our own like cell towers. And then the sysadmin's like, all right, well, here's how much it's going to cost to do that. And quickly realized that, that isn't the case, right? So
you know why a Yugo has rear window defrosters? To keep your hands warm while you're pushing it.
That's right.
When you buy shit, you're gonna push it down the road. That's like it's a $7,000 car. So yeah, spend the money on hardware or get used to shit being broken. It's pretty simple.
Yep. But no, I think Amanda's advice on doing the business impact analysis as well is one. I mean, it's a great way to communicate it, of having those expectations, right? Of, okay, have you gone through the exercise of what does your downtime look like? How much money is it actually costing you? And then what is your risk tolerance on it? The likelihood that you're going to be down is low. So maybe you have a little bit higher tolerance, or not. Figuring that out and showing that on paper goes a lot longer than just the back and forth over, they want champagne on a beer budget. Like, well, let's show them what it takes to get there. It's good advice. So, all right. Well,
not all MSPs are qualified to do what Amanda suggested they do. There's a lot of break fix shops that are like, look, when shit breaks, we fix it, but we're not qualified to do all this business analysis stuff. Not saying that's the case with this Redditor, but we see that a lot in the MSP community.
No, that is a good point. All right, this next one here, I'm going to move us a little early because this one I think is going to generate some really good conversations. So this is actually a LinkedIn post. It's been shared on Reddit, but the Reddit post actually linked to this LinkedIn. But this is a retelling of another story that we can find it and try to post. But the whole synopsis is there is a compliance startup called Delve, and they sold AI-powered compliance automation. SOC 2, HIPAA, ISO, basically saying, hey, you get compliant in days, not months. And this person went through not the LinkedIn poster, but the story that's referenced, went through one of these and quickly realized that they were making up evidence, that it wasn't as automated as they were recommending, that the reports were identical, boilerplate, that the whole system just wasn't as legitimate as it claims to have been. And this goes to kind of trusting that AI magic. So, highly recommend. The write-up is a little bit long, but it has all of the evidence and the information on those. But We've been seeing this for a while. You add an S and you can become an MSSSP overnight, or you get, SOC 2 certified in a week. And now with AI, we're amplifying that. So, let's start with, like, as you're going through this process, I mean, there should be some red flags here. Is this on the company? Is it on the company who hired the company? Let's start with Michael. You have a minute to talk here. So I know you're also with a compliance company. So go ahead and give your thoughts.
Yeah, I think the issue here is whether you're working towards check the box compliance or actually trying to do something good, right? And so we see a lot of times where whether it's AI or whether it's the continuous compliance platforms, they will pull stuff in, and sometimes the stuff they pull in is incorrect because APIs change or poor coding or whatever. And sometimes they create a false sense of security generally just because of human nature. So for example, if it connects to 365 and says, yes, MFA is turned on, and says, cool, you guys have MFA, it doesn't account for the stuff that's not connected to that platform, right? Your HR platform, your accounting platform, etc. And that's actually one of the things that we've been trying to figure out how to solve, is that human factor piece of, like, how do we not create this false sense of security? The issue here really is a couple of pieces, right? It's the some of it's just marketing language, because we've seen similar marketing language from other GRC platforms that are not doing what people are claiming Delve did, because it has not been necessarily proven yet. And so I think like a year ago or so, SecureFrame came out with Get SOC 2 ready in like 2 days or something like that. And again, it's marketing spin. It's not necessarily, hey, we're just going to push a bunch of random documents into to help you check the box. So a lot of this really has to do with kind of going back to and working with the clients or working with the end customer and actually building that security culture and actually trying to do something good versus just trying to get a piece of paper to say, hey, we have this piece of paper that may or may not be worthless.
Erik, what are your thoughts on this? Did you look at this story at all? You aware of it?
Yeah. So, how do I obfuscate this correctly? Somebody who's extraordinarily close to me in my life works for one of the companies that hired Delve. He's a software engineer for one of the companies that hired Delve. To your point, we can just add an S and go from MSP to MSSP. So, as a former / recovering CISSP and CCIE and route and switch and one in security, I think we get to a point where what we don't know what we don't know, and ignorance is bliss. And so we jump into this IT world where we're like, yeah, I can lock down a firewall and a router and a this and a that. Go take the CISSP and you'll find out how little the CISSP really is about technology. It's about business process and how that relates to security. So when you're going through things like this and you're going through SOC 2, be real honest with yourself and look at it and go, all right, let's have a little bit of a vulnerable moment. How much of this do I not understand? Because if I don't, I need to bring in a blacksmith or somebody like that does understand this, that walks this path every day and says, let's really start to walk through the process and see what all the pieces are. Because it's real easy to, especially as geeks, for us to get in our own way and be like, oh yeah, I can totally do this. Like, yeah, the reality is security is a completely different animal than managing IT, right? Managing stuff so it doesn't break. That's one thing.
But that's what the company did. They brought in someone who walks this. They brought in Delve to do this for them because they didn't understand it. And now it looks, according to the story, that anything they would have done is
they kind of did. Delve was pretty transparent that they were an AI-driven SOC 2 compliance model that was very, very low touch. They were pretty transparent about that. So my statement is, bring in actual, again, human in the loop, right? Let's bring in actual human beings and go, okay, hey, Michael, let's sit down and have a talk about blacksmith. Tell me, how long have you been in the industry? What are your credentials? What are your certifications? What is this? What is that? If he comes back and goes, man, we built this killer AI, I'd be like, fucking next. Like, you're like, I want to know exactly, like what have you done? It's like going to a doctor and saying, hey, I need to have this surgery. And they're like, oh, we use a Da Vinci robot. And you're like, yeah, that's super. It still requires a human to drive it. So how many knee surgeries have you done? I've done plenty. That plenty's on a number. And you're not doing mine.
Let's go from a different aspect here. Let's whoever the company you hire to do the SOC 2, let's throw it out the window. You hire a company, whether it's Delve, whether it's somebody else, you got your SOC 2 accreditation and you passed or whatever. Now, let's say Matt, you're gonna hire Erik's company. Are you asking him for that SOC 2? Do you are you just saying, hey, Erik, do you have a SOC 2? And then Erik goes, yep, I got it, and all good? Or, are we diving a little bit deeper here?
Good question.
That depends. Do you mean me or the typical person that asks this question?
You play as Matt, so you as you.
I mean, me, I read the SOC 2 and use it for what value it has, which is demonstrating that a company can follow a process to get certified, not really tell me anything about their security. This whole story, like, I'm just going to give my reaction to it here, which is the whole thing is, yeah, it sounds too good to be true. Probably is. Like, if you think you can get certified in a couple of weeks, first of all, like, all of these are evaluating your security controls over the course of a year. So issue number one right there. But two, there is no easy button for any of this. Like, I don't know who would have hired these guys thinking that there could be. It just doesn't make sense unless they're the cynical person who says, well, I realize the actual value of something like SOC 2 to begin with. Let me just make the easy button for getting the piece of paper and going on with their life. Like, that this is a surprise to anyone is a surprise to me. It just doesn't make sense.
So the more interesting thing that I'm kind of trying to figure out as far as next steps is, so the story's out there. Whether Delve did it or didn't, it's out there. Whether the auditors that were using the platform to just rubber stamp stuff, again, it's hard to say if a specific auditor did or didn't. Some of those auditors that are being accused of that are using other platforms as well. Like, I know I have a friend who leverages Vanta, and they have used one of the auditors being accused in the Delve piece. And so obviously they're not doing the same thing for their Vanta customers they are as they did for Delve, if they did anything for Delve, right? And so I guess the question becomes, what does that do to, in general, for the auditors and the SOC 2 reports that they write going forward? Because it's hard for them to prove, yes, we may have used the platform, but we didn't just rubber stamp stuff. We actually checked it. I know for when they do audits in Vanta, they definitely check because they push back and they ask questions, etc. How do you repair your reputation at that point, right? As an auditor.
I think there will always be someone.
Throw a grenade into the middle of all of this.
Yeah, I think there's always going to be someone that'll, enough time passes that you can slowly rebuild. But I think, kind of echoing some of what Erik was talking about, is, and we've had this discussion a lot with our friend Matt Lee, is people, one, are lazy, and so they're going to take the easiest route. And two, the market is supplying products based on what the average consumer knowledge level is. And so the more educated the buyer, the higher the maturity of the product or service that you're going to see. And AI has, unfortunately, reduced, at least temporarily, what that level of maturity is, and made it so that people can be lazy and just blindly trust these things. And I think until consumers become more educated, we're going to see more and more of these things.
I would like to say something, though. This is not dissimilar from something that happens currently in society as well, right? So when you talk about what you're saying, Henry, we're basically saying AI sounds right, so we believe it, right? But there's always that, that person at a party who sounds like they know what they're talking about. And only somebody else who knows what they're talking about can see through their bullshit, for lack of a better way to put it. And this is the reason for keeping the human in the loop. This is the reason for wanting to make sure that we have oversight. And the reason why Matt said we need to make sure we have somebody who's there who's doing it. Like, every person is echoing the same thing, because AI is the bro at the party that's going to tell you that it knows what it's talking about. It's going to sound right most of the time too. And sometimes it is right. But whether or not it's actually, contributing, whatever factor, that depends on the other people in the room. And we have to keep that cognizant. I will repeat my words from last week when I said AI should be your bitch. It should not be the boss.
Yeah, no, and I to your point, like, I think it's just kind of a newer iteration, and probably falsely confident that you do need blinker fluid. It's that mechanic telling you that, like, it's always going to need that oversight. But just like everything else that we do and interact with in life, there's other instances where people either are uneducated or lazy, or both.
All right. Well, good conversation. Let's go ahead and get into our next story here. Talking about the human side of IT. So this person is, asking for other owners or at minimum managers or above, dealing with an employee information. He has a tech. He was hired at level 1 tech with 0 experience. There's no issues with the customer service, and they're extremely polite. But after almost 3 months, they aren't very technical or outgoing. They do the task that's assigned, but nothing more. If there are not clear instructions, they ask dozens of questions. This is after the task has been done many times before, retrained and re-showed many times. It's like, if I give the exact instructions to do it, it gets done. But if I say do this task exactly like the last one, it's a deer in headlights. Now, mind you, this person is very courteous and very well mannered. They have pros. They're great with exact detailed instructions. They're excellent at cabling and terminating cables, decent at reloading and repairing computers, and very organized, but they also have cons. They're not technical. They can't get tasks done without exact and detailed instructions. The diagnostic skills are almost non-existent, and they haven't progressed in any of the training. So my question is this great at handiwork and such, and should I just keep him at what he does best, which is more so bench tech, or should I keep trying to learn and maybe have them become a level 1? At 90 days, you'll get a pay raise anyway, but I feel, he isn't sure what to do. So should they keep him on? Should they let him go? What advice are you giving this MSP owner?
Where are you starting?
Erik, you want to go?
So the part that he didn't really answer is, how much has he done for this employee other than just expecting them to progress on their own? What systems has this MSP owner put in place? Have they bought a subscription for this person and others to something like Empath or a different type of academy? Like, there's so many missing pieces here, but
they gave him CompTIA training and told him to go take your CompTIA training.
Yeah, so if you're gonna do that, like, grab a couple of your employees and put them in, like, I'll use Empath as an example and say, here's a membership to Empath, and we're gonna carve out time for you guys to talk and discuss every single week. Like, figure out where the heck their weak spots are. Like, work with them. Like, your job is to make them better human beings, not just better employees. And if you're not willing to do that, then you get what you get, right? Like, I mean, we work in tech. We're kind of in that world where, the introverts stare at their shoes and the extroverts stare at your shoes. Like, we're generally not in a world where everybody's like, looking you in the eye and shaking your hand without a mustard stain on their shirt. So you've got to train that out of them, right? Like you've got to empower those people to be, better at that type of thing. And if they can't, then great, then find somebody else. But shit, man, give them the opportunity.
There's a French word that I don't have a direct translation for, but I will use it in case anybody speaks French, but it's débrouillard. It's talking about somebody who takes initiative. And I don't disagree with Erik. It is up to each MSP to be able to empower the people, give them time, schedule the time for them during company hours. There's a lot of things that you can do, but it doesn't sound to me like generally this person does have initiative. The person has to try what Erik's saying, but then they also have to like look at the upward mobility. Why did they even hire this person to begin with? Like, what was the reason for it? Like, there's a lot of things that I don't find in this particular post that I'd have questions for before saying, you know, what I agree or don't agree with. But I do think that I have seen work at an MSP. You know, somebody's going, I want a tech job so I can work from home and I can just do easy shit. That is not an MSP. That is not the life that we are built for. You do need to have a fair level of initiative and ability to go and look for the answer, because that's really the thing. What you're seeing, and why I believe that it is an issue on the employee side, is because if this person was a great troubleshooter, it would tell me that they're able to have initiative and then they just need to be supported. But when you don't have good initiative for finding the answer, that's already a sign for me. I get concerned at that point. I don't mind green people. I've said it a million times. I'll take a green person every single day, but I want someone who's a bit hungry. I want someone who's going to want to do things and to, you know, be curious and creative.
Yeah. One of the things that kind of sticks out to me in this post, which I'm trying to reconcile, is so they said that the person is not very technical or outgoing. Technical piece we'll put aside, but they're saying they're not very outgoing, but at the same time they're saying they're extremely personable and courteous and well-mannered and have really good people skills with the clients. And I'm just like, that to me doesn't mesh fully, and I'm trying to figure out where the disconnect is. When I used to run internal IT, we would almost always not hire for technical skills. We'd hire for people skills, right? I'd much rather hire someone that's out of restaurant, retail, whatever, and teach them the technical skills than teach someone who's technical and can interact with people. And so I'm just personally, I'm having some issues reconciling that piece of this and trying to figure out like where the disconnect is and what other disconnects there are between this manager. And going back to Amanda's point, like, why did they hire them, right? Like, where did the interview process fail? That, again, if you're hiring for personality, that's great. They seem to have the personality. But I also had a long time ago, I used to work with a guy that was like on again, off again every day, right? One day he'd come in, he'd be great. The next day he had smoked a bunch of pot the day before and couldn't tell you what happened or what was going in his head. So
it's legal now.
No, he raises a good point, because this is something that I always, say. I have a whole talk on it, is looking to retail or restaurant specifically to help run your MSP and hiring for the soft skills and being able to take the technical skills. So, my question on this is like, what does the documentation and stuff look like? Is like, yes, sure, they have access to the tools, but do you have like KB articles on how to do things? What is your like actual internal training process and stuff look like? And not taking away from anything on Amanda's point about being hungry and taking initiative and having the curiosity. That is more of a trait and something that's a little harder to teach. And, if someone doesn't have that, they still can be useful depending on if you have a role for them. But if they're continuing to ask the same questions over and over again, maybe it's time to start writing documentation and KBs on how to do the same thing over and over again for them to follow, or having them, maybe work on the documentation if you don't have it. Matt, you've been quiet for a while. What are your thoughts?
So there is room for a couple of these in some organizations. And what I mean by that is someone who perfectly follows instructions, even if they're not hungry. There are some tasks like that have to get done. Yes, I would prefer someone to have the initiative or have troubleshooting skills, but the organization I left, there were still some things that hadn't been fully automated, or things that were just kind of routine tasks or like physical tasks. And if I had someone who wanted to do that stuff and didn't necessarily have a desire to move up, I'd be okay with that to a point if their personality really is as good as this post is saying. Yeah, it would be better if they had some desire to move up or if they were good at troubleshooting. Um, but there are still some like low level like manual tasks that need to happen, and if I can have some confidence that they'll occur without me having to babysit it, that's kind of a win. Like I'll take that. Now it doesn't scale, right? You can't have a lot of those, and it gets into a debate of like how many of those are going to be left with the advances we're seeing in AI automation, et cetera. um, but if you have tasks that this person is doing and doing them well and succeeding, and they don't need a lot of the senior guys or your time, then that's not a bad thing. If they are sucking up all of your time and your senior guys' time, right, asking questions like the post implies, that's a different story. But if you can find someone to get the grunt work, for lack of a better term, done consistently and who's friendly about it, not necessarily such a bad thing.
All right, another good conversation here. So people still use KBs instead of just building vector DB for an AI agent to access knowledge for new people. It's cool. So yeah, we uncovered a process that we can automate or to use AI for. It's a good point. Let's go ahead and continue on with another. I think this will prompt some good discussion here. So this hit the news this week. And I know it's been circulated in some of our kind of our inner circles here, a couple of discords and signals, but I'll talk about it here. The United States is banning imports of new foreign-made routers, citing security concerns. So the FCC said it won't affect or the use of existing models, but it's banning new ones. They determined that it was a severe cyber risk that can be leveraged to disrupt U.S. critical infrastructure. So unless they have an exemption, all the routers and gear need to be made in the United States now. So how is this going to affect us? Does this affect us at all? What are you guys' thoughts on this? Well, I mean, Amanda, you're in Canada, so maybe this won't affect you at all.
No, it will. Our supply chain runs directly through the United States, and all our distributors are there, so it definitely will. And it will affect us, because the reality is there's a lot. We say consumer grade in this, right? And it won't hit right away. But if this is something long lasting, in my opinion, obviously, this is something where you'll notice that there's a lot of companies out there doing it wrong. If that makes sense, where they're running entire organizations off of basic consumer level, whatever. And when that hits the fan and it needs to be replaced, the only option for them is what they should have been using all along, which means we're going to have people flooding the market that way and creating supply constraints. And then anytime somebody says there's going to be something, people rush and panic buy, and that will also create its own supply constraints. This is a lot of volatility and uncertainty in a market that cannot, as we just finished talking about, burn rates, and everything relies on technology. Everything relies on being connected to the internet. And so nobody's going to want to take the risk to not have access to something. I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see within the next month or so hits in terms of supply. It was not undissimilar from laptops during COVID.
But I mean, what are our choices? What are we supposed to buy?
Let's be real. Let's be real. There is no way that they're going to be able to ramp up a factory. I think I saw this in one of the chats, so please don't think this is my thought, but it was basically something along the lines of they'll just end up shipping the same stuff they had before, they'll flash the firmware and then reinstall it and say it was whatever in the United States. Like, it won't be the entire supply chain. It'll just be security theater. If we want to talk about real change, it's not something that you do in try not to swear, in a post on whatever overnight, and it requires an actual conversation, because these are real risks and threats. I'm not going to debate that, but it's not something that's solved by saying, well, don't do it or else, and now, like, you know what I mean? And also, just to, I think it's Brandon in the comments, but don't get me started on Tesla or Starlink either, because that's a whole nother conversation. I'm trying to keep my cool.
All right, Henry, you also have an MSP. I mean, is this something that you're talking with your clients about? Are you making plans for procurement over the next 9-12 months?
Honestly, I'm surprised that the government hasn't reversed course on this already and done something completely different that we're not even thinking about, just because they can't seem to hold their attention to anything for very long. But yeah, this is not a conversation I'm having or worried about with my clients because, like Amanda, I think that this is going to end up being some type of either security theater or it's going to be a tax that is imposed on these companies to get the specialized approval that they need in order to pass their products through. I don't think that this has actually anything to do with the proper security vetting of these products. Unfortunately, I do think that is a real issue that has come to light in the past, especially with some of the WikiLeaks documents that were shared. There was an instance in there that specifically talks about Cisco products being co-opted. But I don't think that that's actually really the target with this this rule that's being put in place. I think that this is, if that was the target, it would be done in a much more thoughtful and rolled out way.
Like talk about how you buy it directly from the company instead of through distributors that don't necessarily verify that they're not reselling things that aren't actually that are knockoffs. I did make a joke internally at Auvik, though. I said this might actually affect what kind of ubiquity switches and stuff that we need to keep in stock because it might become more valuable because we do a lot of giveaways for free trials. So I did say just keep an eye on that. We might have some more fraud or something happen there. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot here.
Well, and it's a little vague too, because if they say net new, well, what if they just keep manufacturing the same model? I mean, those are already existing. It's just not, very clear. So, Henry said he's not having, the conversations with the clients, but, let's say, like, what if a client sees this, they read the news and they, ask you about it. What are you telling them the same thing? Are you, handling it a little bit differently? Is it Matt, Eric, Mike, any of you guys want to answer that one?
I'm telling my client you don't have a consumer router anyway. Hopefully.
Yeah. Going back to, the whole security theater piece has been brought up a couple of times, right? One of the things that's interesting to me about this is why specifically routers? Why not all the random foreign IoT devices and cameras and everything else? Like, why are we picking on specifically routers? What about all the Netgear switches and like?
Oh, Michael, if you put a camera inside a router, it can watch all the data that you have, and they'll have all the information about what it is you're sending, and they can read your emails.
Sure, assuming
I'm being sarcastic. That was a lot of sarcasm. That was
or there were those devices that you can get that'll unlock all the streaming services for free, and totally not send information and be a botnet.
We can neither confirm nor deny. But this goes back to you shouldn't be using consumer grade stuff for businesses in general, and B, as far as this piece, it's very much theater of we're claiming security for the sake of security versus doing something actually meaningful.
I think if you want a real reaction and not just a one-liner joke from me, it's that I'm finding it difficult with this to assume positive intent. I think I said that in one of the chats this week, and whether that's nefarious, right? Some kind of will only approve things with this DNS filter server one day, or if it's just a tax, whatever the ultimate intent of this is, it doesn't seem positive, and it doesn't seem like a good faith effort to improve security. It's hard for me to say exactly what the specific negative intent of this might be, but I'm almost certain that it's not genuine protection against a security threat. And similar to the other commentators, I think this will ultimately end up either rolled back significantly or just some kind of import fee or something. It's really not feasible long term. Maybe in the very long time frame it could be feasible, certainly not in the immediate future.
Follow the dollar bill. Where's the lobbyist in the chain of this that's making this happen? This isn't a security issue. This is a money issue. No different than TikTok, no different than everything else the government does.
And we find out that Mike is coming out with a blacksmith branded router. We see your game. Respect.
Explains everything.
All right, let's go into the next story. Is kind of interesting. Is we get stories over like how to start, or we're having struggles, but this story they're talking about growing pains, which isn't something we cover very often. So the synopsis of this is this person had a 5-man MSP, and when it was smaller, everyone knew what they were doing. They had good communication, but now they've grown to about kind of medium size, 10, 15 or higher, and now there's some breakdowns in communications. They have issues, they have different scenarios that they're kind of disconnected. So how do we deal with this? Because this wasn't an issue before. Everyone just knew what they were doing, and we're all good here. But it is clearly becoming an issue, and we don't know how to scale at this. So, Amanda, how do you fix communication at scale?
Next pass. How do I opt out of answering that one? I think though, honestly,
Can we pare down the question?
I think to be honest with you, this is not really just a question about communication. It's like, what is your plan for scale? Like, what did you plan? What did you anticipate being an issue? We can all say we want to grow, but like, it is not just the numbers of how many new sales we need to have, how many whatever. It's what does it look like? What does it take to support it? And then how do we make sure we have the infrastructure for all of that? And so, like, yes, communication is the issue. It's the symptom, really, not the issue. And so that's kind of what my answer would be to that. Like, if you want to do these things, you have to figure out what it looks like to get 15 people doing the same thing at the same time. To the point at the beginning when we started this, let's talk about daily stand-ups. Sometimes you have to go back to the things that worked, when you were less people, and consider what that looks like, even though it might not necessarily be the first thing that you think of. Some people think, oh, we want to bring technology into it, we want to have this flash, whatever it's doing, but people adopt that in different ways. It's really hard to ignore someone's face when you're standing in front of them or you're in a thing with them. So like that would be my advice for something on how to do. But I really think that when we talk about scale, we need to be talking more holistically about what does it look like? What does it feel like? What is the day-to-day like? You can't really do those things just by talking about adding numbers. You have to talk about what processes and systems have to scale with it.
Anything to add on to that, Matt Henry? Yeah.
I thought we were broken. I was like, what happened? Everybody's quiet. Did I just say it right? I don't know.
No, we were waiting for Josh to call on someone.
Truth.
Yeah. Well, all right. We'll go Henry. Or if Erik's ready, go ahead, Erik.
So here's the thing: is that you have two modes of operation as a MSP, right, or an IT service provider. One is to go in and have a client go, hey, we need X, and you go, okay, perfect, we can do that because we're tech geeks and we know how to do that. The other approach is they say, hey, we need X, and you back up and say, why do you need X? What problem are we trying to solve? How are we going to approach this to make sure it's best for the entire business? That's the right way an MSP should operate. You should operate the exact same way internally. So they're like, we're not drinking our own Kool-Aid or eating our own dog food and saying, how do we actually solve this problem? And like they put right in the post, like, okay, we're doing these things and we're documenting them in some Teams folder. Why the hell are we not documenting them in the help desk software that the help desk technician is going to be looking at when he's on the phone with the client? So we can look at it and go, oh, I see that we just did an upgrade or a migration or a permission change or this or whatever. Like, why are we making them go look for that? Like, would that be an acceptable solution for their team on their side? If we're like, oh yeah, we didn't put that in here. We didn't put that in your CRM. We put that in a separate Teams channel. You have to go look over there. The customer would be like, that doesn't work for us. It needs to be in the CRM, which is the single source of truth for this customer. Great. Put it in your help desk software. Like, this isn't, I'm not to throw shade on the person that posted that on Reddit, but I'm genuinely baffled. Like, how the fuck is this a problem? Like, you know, like before we
I
started the
could
call,
tell you
Mike,
how it's a problem. We could do an entire episode on how it's a problem.
yeah,
Because
like
documentation and all those things are not sexy for techs to do, and they resist doing them. So like I get why it happens, but it's also got to be part of your culture from the beginning, and they have to be made to understand why. One thing
Yeah.
that we do pretty well, I think, at before is there's a lot of analogies that explain to people like what happens when you don't, but then also equate it to things in real life. It's not like you can go to Walmart, take all the stuff you want to, and then shout at somebody on the way out the door that you just bought all these things and hopefully you bill me later. Like you have to have either get a receipt for a reason. You know, you there's a part of the transactions that, you know, that are like integral and necessary. And but if you haven't made that evident to your team, then to your point, like it's not going to happen. But if they did make it evident the team's not doing it, then what the fuck? That's whatever. But this is a problem. Every time I go to an event, and anybody else who attends a lot of events tell me you don't hear the same thing. My techs are not tracking their time properly. They're not putting stuff in the PSA. They're doing whatever. And it's like I'm wrangling cats. You can see it on Reddit a million times. I've literally banged my head on the table about it as well, because you have to do it. But this is why they're saying that, because it's an absolute fight. Everybody's fighting with somebody at some point in the MSP world.
Yep. Mike, you said that you led IT teams. I mean, do you operate Blacksmith the same way you did when you had a larger IT team, or are things different?
We do. I mean, we document everything we do, and there's two pieces to it. It's for internal comms, right? We've got Jira boards, so any changes that happen, we document in there. It's as much for making sure that Jared and I are on the same page as to make sure that me and future me are on the same page, right? When something comes up and I'm like, I don't know why this is like this, I can go back and see, oh yeah, I did this for this reason. Like no one's going to remember why something was done 4 months ago necessarily. And so just it goes back to just documenting what you do. I always, when I was running internal IT, I would always tell the end users, hey, if it's not a ticketing system, we're not working it. And you can email the help desk, you can put in a ticket, and I would say order of priority. Like if this is urgent, put in a ticket because I'll get treated the fastest, because it'll go to the appropriate team, assuming you choose the right drop downs. You just email the help desk, it will go in the ticketing system, and then somebody has to classify it, find the right person that it needs to go to. It just takes longer. And if you call, it's going to be assuming someone's available versus against. So smaller MSPs replicate an internal IT team, right? For an SMB, where you have 2-3 people in IT. Larger MSPs have more bandwidth to say, hey, someone's always going to answer the call. But on a smaller scale, they may be busy dealing with other clients, so calling is not the best way either. So we always kind of push people towards putting an actual ticket if you want it addressed, and that way in a week, when someone says, hey, why these permissions change, we have an audit of that, and we can say this is why it changed.
I think what's happening here is this person is misusing or misunderstanding what the point of the stand-up or the Teams channel is. And what I mean by that is, to Erik's point, the primary source of truth in your MSP is whatever you're using for your ticketing, project management, etc. system. That being said, the point of the stand-up or the point of the Teams channel is to say something like, hey guys, I moved this Y drive over to the new server last night. It went kind of wonky. Watch out for some tickets. That doesn't replace the item in the CRM or in the ticketing system. What that does is give everyone a heads up. You might get some calls about that today. Go find it or be prepared for that, so it's not a surprise. And I think what sometimes happens is that communication gets treated as the primary source where that kind of information gets distributed. That's a supplement. That's like, hey, be on the lookout for this today. Go see the ticketing system for more details. If you use it that way, it doesn't become cumbersome, and you remove the idea of, hey, I have to scroll through all this stuff to try and find the relevant documentation. The relevant docs stay in your documentation system. It's literally just a warning that, hey, you might get some more calls about this today. Heads up. Like, that's all it's supposed to be for. And if you didn't come from an organization that did stand-ups in that kind of way, you might think that's how you tell people about stuff, and it's not.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to the communication or, proper change control, which, the part of the change control is communicating on that. I mean, it's how our, stand-ups go, as well as our project team, and say, we worked on this. If you get calls about it, please let us know. And, now we are privileged enough to be a large organization that has a separate project department, but it doesn't matter. I mean, if it's your higher techs doing the project or whatever, if there's something that can affect your level one, your service desk, it needs to be communicated. And yes, the ticketing change control space is one thing, but giving a heads up and figuring out how to relay that information so we're not duplicating efforts, wasting time, or confusing the on doing the work, confusing the client as well. And it just, all comes down to the communication word. So all right, we got one more story, but we will save it for next time. Appreciate Erik and Mike for hopping on and joining us. And let's go ahead and bring up our event calendar and let's see what's coming up. All right, we have the MSP Summit in spring, April 13th to 14th in Las Vegas. About the same time, we have Channel Partners Conference and Expo, also in Vegas. We have Enable Empower, April in Fort Lauderdale, and Kaseya Connect Global, April 27th to 30th in Las Vegas. As always, we have, give the shout out to the IR game that is going on immediately following after this. We do that the last Friday every month, but I'll pass it to, let's go Erik and then Mike. You guys want to shout out what you're working on and where people can find you?
Yeah, pretty much Erik Boles everywhere. ERIKBOLES. I'm built all the brand stuff for PAX 8, built all the brand stuff for MX Logic, helped build brand for a lot of the people that you see in the channel, and now we're doing that at scale over at VOSA. That's about it.
Mike Zbarsky, co-founder of Blacksmith InfoSec, and we have a compliance platform to help MSPs deliver compliance services to their clients. So you can find us at blacksmithinfosec.com.
Perfect. All right. Well, again, thank you guys so much for joining, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for having us on, man.
Yeah, no problem.
Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Josh.
Yep.
This has been a broadcast of the MSP Media Network.